I was like, you push her right past Colby Sawyer, and you tell her, Mommy can't
All right.
go in the States Hall.
Good evening. Welcome to the April 10th, 2019 Abington Finance Committee meeting. We are continuing our series of meetings with department heads, going over the budgets of different departments. Tonight on our docket, we have the town accountant, we have the Board of Selectmen / town manager, and we have the assessor's office, which will be represented by the town accountant tonight due to a conflict. So why don't we have the town accountant and town manager come on up.
No, not at all. You're a lady.
Where do we want to start?
I'll do the assessors.
Assessing.
All right, assessor is on page 7.
Yeah. She did a good job as Marty. See if she can do a good job as Jack. Okay. So you don't need this format. You're pretty much.
No.
Assessor is on page 9, sorry. That was my mistake, I read the wrong number.
Okay, so his salaries have increased based on contractual obligations. There is now vacation buyback in the unions, as well as a couple of percent increases.
Yeah, union increases and then 2 for Jack.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And then basically the rest of his expense accounts, he says that they've come down a little bit, and mostly because of his vehicle's a newer vehicle, so it's not gonna need as much maintenance and vehicle supplies.
Now, mind you, it's still an old vehicle. It's just newer than his other one, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't drive it, we'll put it that way.
His travel budget decreased.
And his professional, is that just because decreased by a lot? I mean, that's great.
Well, every year at the end of the year, he takes, like, say that vision valuation, the $30,000. Some of that gets pushed into the new year because the contract set up, and same with the RRC, which is the personal property tax system. So it inflates the FY19 because we're encumbering the money for the payment that's due July 1. So that's why that's inflated.
So it's really just about the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Postage is the same. Office supplies is the same.
Education and training went down.
Education and training went down. I think there's something that he doesn't have to go to this year.
Yeah.
And then his dues and fees stayed the same as well. Schools of the trade went down 200 just because he hadn't been spending a lot of it, and he's got pretty much what he needs, so it's just there in case something he needs to replace.
He needs a new tape measure.
Exactly. That's about it.
The increase in the union and salary increases are not reflected in the budget that I have. Oh, okay, never mind.
Other questions on the assessor's budget?
We knew that would be a controversial one. That's why Jack didn't want to come.
Please let him know that we did
Yes,
this
I did.
presentation. He does always give a really good presentation.
Yeah.
Isn't he the one that gives us the tax percentage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes
Is
over
it going
the-
down?
Sure.
Is the tax percentage, do we know if it's staying the
The
same?
tax rate itself?
The
You
rate
said it was
is-
going down by 3%.
Oh, I must have missed it.
Yeah, but again,
Because I know that they didn't increase the levy and more people have moved, so I figured.
I'm only kidding.
Like if,
Do we know?
well, the
The
levy,
tax
the levy is going up, but.
Oh, it is.
Yes, well, it's a seesaw,
so,
you know, the values versus the rate. That's why when you see, you know, the tax rates listed by cities and towns, I mean, it virtually means nothing. You know, it really is. It's basically your average tax bill that's of any value, because, you know, if you have a, you know, I'll bet Concord's tax rate's a bit lower than ours, you know, but,
They're paying more because their
yeah,
taxes cost more.
exactly. So a lot of people look at a tax rate and think it has some relevance, but it really doesn't. The only time it has a relevance is if you have a split tax rate. You know, the policy issues that you deal with that, other, you know.
Well, the rate plus the assessment is what it really is, right?
Times, well, it's your assessment, yeah, multiplied by the rate.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So is the rate staying the same?
Do we know what the
Or
rate?
do we know?
No, we won't know until.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have basically within a few, down to a few pennies now. I mean, that's something that, you know, after town meeting, that's, you know, the rate is set between there and the first quarter. But that's, you know, Department of Revenue is usually,
Oh, okay.
by the time they get it, it's pretty much a done deal. The only challenge is for Sue and Jack to make sure, the formula apparently for that the Department of Revenue requires, you point a .01 in there and somehow you're off, your tax rate's off, it doesn't make sense. So it's just, you know, good old state formula.
What is the rate currently?
I want to say it's
I wanna say
17.92.
Yeah, 17 and something.
And what do we,
I think it's 17.
Oh, that's right, I
That sounds
forgot, we have an
right.
assessor in the room,
Yeah.
okay.
and what do
I
we
think it's
think,
1710, I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah.
And what do we-
This fiscal year is 1710.
what do we think it's going to increase to?
There's no way of telling until after they go out and do the assessments of the,
Is this?
Well, that's why it's hard to know on new
Is this a
growth too,
revalue
because.
fee?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Hmm?
This isn't a
It's
reevaluation.
not a
Not
revalue,
yet,
but,
no.
Oh, so it will stay the same for,
not necessarily.
the
It
te-
depends on the levy.
Right, exactly. If, again, it's too early to tell that, because, you know, as Kate said, you know, if the levy is, you know, maximized, which it probably will be or close to it, but we don't know that till after town meeting. Any-
Okay.
You done with your
that's
speech?
done with the
Any
assessors?
other
Wow.
assessor questions? All right.
Jack will put his presentation on file with the town clerk. See it later.
I can request, and it's just on that.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay, then we have the accountant salaries.
This is page 7.
And there's an increase in the town accountant salary, one which has been discussed in the past of the
I do recall.
stipend for the procurement. And the other is contractual 2% increases for the clerical staff. And they
One
also get
one of whom's in the union, the other
Right.
one's non-union.
And they do get vacation buyback this year as well. So it's not the vacation buyback, if they use it, then that money stays there, but if they don't, then they wanted to buy back a vacation week.
And again, it's capped at 1 week.
The buyback was capped at 1 week?
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
thanks.
The auditing and accounting budget went up 2,000. We have an OPEB report that we have to do every year, and I got an estimate from him that it would be approximately $12,000 for this coming year.
Sorry. That's the OPEB.
Accounting, so not auditing right
Oh,
here.
okay,
Page 7.
all right, thank you. All right. And how often is the OPEB? Is it every year or every
It's
3 years?
Huh?
How
It's
often is that
every other
required?
year.
Every other year, okay.
The administrative assistant,
Mm-hmm.
is that a salary increase?
That's a percent increase, yes, 2%.
That's a union position?
That one is not union.
It's not a union position. What was, I'm sorry.
wait, 45 to 50.
Yeah, it has a,
How
So
did,
this was requested.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
What's-
I had asked Sue, I asked
That's
about
not
this
last
too.
year's.
Yeah.
Oh, because I'm like, how? Oh, I thought this was
Oh,
last year's
yes.
and this is what they were going to. I'm like, that is not, I'm not great.
That
That
is
is not 2%.
So she's.
Okay.
She's,
I was just confused.
that 53 is to bring her up to 32 hours. She only works 28.
So that's.
That was the intent, was to bring her up, but this just wasn't available in the budget.
Okay, so she's staying 28 with only a 2% raise.
Correct.
Okay.
But I did ask, because I asked Sue about if we could get a format next time around that gives us the current.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
Like what
confused.
the current,
Right.
so, just going with that, what was the current, town accountant salary?
The administrative that you're talking about?
No,
The actual salary.
the salary for the town accountant currently.
Do you have your calculator?
No, I don't.
Neither one of us
No.
have it.
I have a phone on me,
Yeah,
but-
so can you just take 2% off of that,
Yeah.
What?
off of the
Off of the
85,550.
85,550.
Okay,
So
that's-
that's all. It's
So it's a
Yep.
2% increase.
right over
The
the.
stipend that we talked about is above that.
That is
71, 291?
Do you see that, the line
Back out
above,
2%.
Barbara?
70.
71, that's a lot.
That's why we don't bring calculators, Greg.
87.
Okay, is it, wait a minute,
So 85,550.
No, other way.
Minus 2%.
12,000 is a stipend.
okay.
Minusing it?
Yeah, that's what you find out was the current fiscal year, right?
83.3.
There we go.
Yes,
Thank you.
83,
83.3.
83.3.
So between the finance committee and the town accountant and town manager, it took us how long to figure out a 2% decrease? Gives
Actually,
the-
probably
gives the
not
community confidence.
exactly as written, 'cause it's 2% of that brings it up to the 85. It's not 2% of the 85, so.
So education,
Close
and
enough.
training has stayed the same. Office supplies the same, travel, dues and fees are all the same.
Any questions?
God bless you, no.
All right. Selectmen,
Well, there's a few things. Number one,
page 2 now.
well, yeah, we're
Do you-
going to start at, I'm sorry?
Do you want them to have what you're
Yeah.
looking at?
Sure, I mean, the format, for whatever reason, this system, when there's an issue, once again, this Ted has
Yes.
trouble dealing with it. So, you know, printed out some in a different format, and it may be easier for you to follow along.
We made some changes to it,
With
that's
the-
why we needed to make.
Right, from the original, because there's been some changes since then. But just looking at the, you know, out of the book itself, the regular format, starting just with the town meeting, the same $3,000, basically it just pays for detail officers at, you know, town meeting, so I don't think they're gonna spend a lot of time with that, so,
I don't use this, because that's what they're looking at.
okay, that's what I have here, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine there's much question on town meeting itself. It's maybe at town meeting, but.
And we had, sorry, no,
No.
go ahead. I was thinking elections, not town meeting.
I'm sorry, what's
I
that?
was thinking elections, not town
Oh.
meeting, so
Mhm.
ignore.
Okay, now looking at selectmen / town manager budget. Yeah, I don't know, it might be helpful to compare what I just passed out with what's in the book, but essentially, the salaries would include the town manager, and that's a 2% increase. The administrative assistant, and that's a 2% increase, and that's, this is part-time. You might know that this administrative assistant also works part-time for the ZBA and the Conservation Commission. So that's all wrapped up into one position.
But the salary's broken out.
In the other budgets, in the ZBA and the Conservation,
Okay.
correct, okay. The next line, we've reduced that for now by about $49,000. I didn't want to go all the way just yet, because we have to determine exactly what assistance we might need. That's probably still a little heavy, but I'm just trying to be cautious this year. Obviously, by FY '21, we'll have a much better idea and hopefully recognize more savings than what you see right now. But I just want to be careful in year one, how we deal with that.
Because you have,
Spit it out. Come on, Bob.
So there's, like, severance or however you work that?
Yeah, we've looking at it one of two ways, and that's being determined at the moment. And the question is, is that all paid out in one distribution after town meeting through a post-employment benefit article? Which is what we're planning on at the moment, okay? Which would be, sick leave and vacation on the books, et cetera. So this is presuming that there is this presumes that there is a payout, okay, all encompassing, which doesn't hit the budget. The budget is presuming that there's just an elimination of a position, and we're leaving some funds in there from that old position to once we can identify what our administrative needs are, we'll have some funding. That's really where we stand at the moment. Like I said, this is probably still heavy in terms of what we need.
So we're not replacing a town assistant, town
No,
this time, yeah.
again, the question is to what
We need like an administrative or
what sort of
whatever.
administrative support we need, exactly. So, again, I just don't want to leave,
Is there a benefit for, sorry if I just cut something out, is there a benefit for paying out at once as opposed to overtime, or is it just, does it really not matter?
I'm sorry.
Does it pay, I thought we were saying we were gonna pay it out all at once?
That's likely going to be, again, that's still being discussed between the appropriate parties, yeah.
I just didn't know if there was a benefit for one or the other, really.
I don't think there's really much of a
Yeah.
benefit. I guess the only benefit is that we can try our best to see a pure budget instead of
Yeah.
having to build in like, whatever,
Yeah.
3 months of, but again, it's really form over substance. It really is. You wouldn't see as much of a savings if, you'd see some, but like I said, even that, this is a little heavy. I don't know at this point how heavy it is. It's gonna take us a little time to figure that out. The other, again, the vacation buyback, that includes a couple of weeks under my salary, and currently under the assistant town manager. Again, there's a piece of that will be paid out in FY '20. The hearings officer stipend, that's a statutory.
I'm sorry, I gotta go back.
No, go ahead.
So you have money set aside through the savings in that position to cover the cost of whatever you need to pay out.
So,
Well, did we had already
Essentially,
budgeted the
if you
position
look-
for the year, right?
so if you look on the original budget that we had,
Right.
it was
The wrong page,
98,805.
probably.
Yes.
And in the current budget,
It's only
it's
40.
48,805.
Right.
So we cut it in
50,000.
half instead of removing it all so that we can.
Correct. Because eventually there will be some need that we need to, yet to identify, and there's also some, we'll say, collective bargaining requirements that we're still dealing with, to determine how much we could possibly replace sooner rather than later. So, and again, so again, taking a good, significant amount of those savings, which then, accrues to the benefit of the entire budget. While we have some time during this year, to assess what our needs are going forward. And as I said, this is probably still heavy.
Right, so, but what I was asking is,
The buyout.
right, we've got money, so we've eliminated a position.
Correct.
That drops the budget by X amount of dollars. We're keeping the budget up, 48,805, because we don't know what our needs will be,
Correct.
but we still have,
Still have a buyout to pay for.
exactly.
Correct.
So I'm asking you, we had budgeted for it, so that's
We had budgeted for what? I'm sorry.
Like our position.
the position.
Exactly,
So
right,
we have that
right,
money.
right.
So that money it doesn't really drop the overall budget by that amount.
Well, by the 50, it does. If the buyout is done through an article separately at town meeting, then we have the entire
Okay.
budget amount.
That's
Yes,
so
yes.
it'll be separate.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we've had the same
All right.
discussions over and over again, too.
Okay.
But some of it is to be worked out, and that's to somewhat, I don't want to say, I guess, legal issue at the moment.
Yeah,
So
I just
that's-
wanted to make sure that.
Could we nix this out of this particular like budget and then revisit it after when you do determine like what is needed?
Well, the problem is town meeting's over, and so it would take,
You have to
take a
have
special
money
town meeting.
somewhere.
I got you.
So that's it.
So this isn't something that we could revisit without having a special town
Exactly,
meeting.
exactly, right.
So taking only approximately half of it out is covering our bases for
Yes.
the eventual determination of what the
Exactly.
cost will be.
And like I said, I completely acknowledge that even at, taking out half of that, the number that is still in there, again, I said, it's still a little heavy, but until we have a better sense of, presumably going into FY '21, it will be lower even than FY '20, but we'll just, again, I just don't want to be, underestimate what our needs are, so. Any other questions on that for now?
Salary questions.
Yes, salary questions. Okay, now it gets confusing because the format changes, but the expenses, when you look eventually at the bottom line budget expenses, it's going to look heavy, but because one of them is, this is basically why. The landfill monitoring is not something that's been in the budget before. This is initially, well, going back a couple of years, we did have a bond issue that was intended for the capping and monitoring of that landfill. So there's been money spent here anyway. This is transitioning it from what was a bond issue to a budget issue, because realistically, this is and will be an ongoing expense indefinitely.
Why is that?
Because based upon the fact that it's an uncapped, unlined landfill, DEP requires us to either cap it, or if we monitor it, and the results of the ongoing monitoring are, continue to be positive, then we won't have to cap it, which is going to cost a couple $1 million.
Right, so we're hoping that we can continue to monitor it. and,
Exactly.
How long do they say that monitoring needs to,
They don't.
so indefinitely, we could be paying $25,000, we're gonna catch up to $1 million, a couple million that it
True,
would have
but-
costed to cap it.
But you're still gonna have to have some landfill monitoring of some form,
We won't be here.
No, but somebody will.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Just historically, you may recall, about 10 years ago, there was a whole host of hearings that were here
Yeah.
talking about the need for what the options are going to be. And one of the aggressive options was the big dig, taking big dig, landfill, putting that soil here, capping it, making ball fields, doing this, doing that. And at the end of the day, we said, we'll just pay this monitoring fee. So, I mean, that's just the history.
You sound like you're a proponent of a different option, perhaps.
I'm a proponent of several different options. I believe we want to acquiring some property for some
Yeah.
landfill that actually migrated into citizens'
Contaminated onto,
property.
yeah.
So there's a lot of energy as we go to dump our leaves and look at, what those issues are. But the point being is,
Yeah.
I understand the fee, I understand the
Yeah.
history behind the fee, and I don't think it's out of line.
No, and realistically, it's not like there'll be no monitoring at all required, even if it's capped. So there's always going to be some, engineering component even after it's capped. And again, I know $25,000 a year over, it's going to take a lot to get to, $2 million, but still.
Evidently 40 years.
40 years to one.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
so if you cap it, can you not, I know, I
That's
don't want
faster
to spend too much
with
time
math.
on this, but if you cap it, are you done? Do you have to go to another landfill? Do we have to find a new spot for it?
Well, we're actually not, it's not being used as a
All right,
as a
it's not.
town, no, it hasn't been for many, many years.
Welcome to Abington.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so that changes everything, though.
Well.
I mean, if we're not using it,
well,
when we supposed to just bite the bullet on that, and are there plans to like use it again?
Not at the moment, no. We had talked about like maybe putting solar making, putting solar on top, but then you get into all kinds of issues with DEP. You might have to cap some of it, I mean, it's just, it really, we look at it, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
This is a site that, as of right now, there's really nothing to do with it that's been identified. Hopefully, maybe someday that will change, but
Where is it? I was just gonna say the same thing.
Sean, where is it?
Dump, where you bring your leaves?
Compost site?
Yeah, that's where it is, yes.
Groveland.
Groveland, yeah.
There used to be a big hole.
Yeah, it was-
When I was growing up, it was, you brought your trash there.
And it was just your trash you bring there, or like leaves?
Well, right now, it's just leaves.
Now it's just leaves.
Composting.
Compost, yeah, it's not a transfer station.
But it
drop-off
used
site.
to be like, when I was growing
I
up, it was a big dump. You just dumped your trash in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Which is,
And then
it's called a
people-
landfill.
Then people realized
Right.
that that was
That
not
was
Well, we
bad.
called it the
not a
dump.
good idea.
I'm sorry, I
Then
didn't.
people realized that was not a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
That was back in the 70s. so.
Right, so now you have to deal with it, well, town has to deal with it.
At some point.
And again, hopefully, at the point now where, it's been years now, it's almost like you don't mention snow and ice because it might snow, but it's been at the point where it's been monitored and for so long now, and there's been no significant findings. You'd like to think that will continue indefinitely.
The hope would certainly be
Right.
that with nothing new going in,
Exactly. And to what extent, maybe down the road, that even maybe some of the monitoring can be reduced, but again, DEP tells us those things. So that's something that's completely new
so
in terms of budget.
that has been a bonding item before.
Yes. Want to explain that?
It was technically a bonding item to do the original landfill.
The cap, it was actually the capping, yeah. Which was a whole process of design.
And it was just for that
engineering.
particular
Setting
year,
it.
but there was
Yeah.
money in there, so
So the
nobody went
monitoring-
back to the wording and just assumed that it was for the monitoring as well.
So the monitoring continued to come from
From that.
previously bonded.
Exactly. So it's just being paid for in a different fashion. Right.
So,
Now, it may very well be that this isn't the best place to put it from an expense standpoint, whether this should be a separate solid waste budget, but right now, might be a discussion later on, but right
Board
now.
of Health
Did we,
might seem to make sense.
did we bond to cap the landfill and then use the money to
Not cap the landfill.
not cap the landfill and pay the monitoring fee? Oh, is that what
They
happened?
had to do something originally. I don't remember what
Yeah,
the
this was
original
before our
bonding
time.
was for. I'd have to
Yeah.
bring back the article.
Well, that's, Sean, did we cap the landfill?
No, we
I mean,
didn't.
did we bond out to cap the landfill and then now it seems that we've used the money to,
No, God, no. The purpose of, so there was like 3 different phases.
it's like the
Um,
study?
The bonding was the maintenance and for the fees.
Okay.
To not cap it,
Mhm.
until such time as the town makes a decision as to what it wants to do with that land and the purpose. And I believe the bond was to purchase the contaminated property, right? That could possibly be
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, that
I might
goes,
be mixing memories, I don't want to.
You might be mixing, but I think the core is what you're talking about,
Yeah, I
though,
think
was
it was-
maintenance and.
we made a decision to, let's just watch it. I mean, literally, in every pun intended, kick the can down the road, right, from the landfill, and to see what the best options would be. There are a host of initiatives that are afoot in and around Beacon Hill now as it relates to certain changes at DEP, and you may see certain changes that might be beneficial to the town. So the longer we wait, as long as it doesn't cause a public health issue and
Right.
things are still maintaining what they're supposed to maintain, great.
Yeah.
And then you'll see if I'll be an audience member when this happens. Let's talk about the Community Preservation Act. This is green space. Why don't we just use that money that we've accumulated to make this into parks and.
And It's
Thank you.
usually when something happens at Beacon Hill, it doesn't help us, so perhaps it'll be different this time.
Ever the optimist.
But yeah, I think the cynic is more, Okay, the next item here is the audit and accounting budget. This is the every year's annual audit, which you're all familiar with. And this is actual pricing, the increase for this coming year.
So what is the increase?
It's just $2,000 from 50 to 52.
Okay, I
Yeah,
see,
okay.
I see.
All right, The advertising budget, that's fairly, let me see, it's up a little bit from FY 2018. However, it's the same as this past year. And a lot of that is because, especially with CPA projects, there's just a lot more advertising RFPs that we've been dealing with the last couple of years, so.
But it's level from last year.
Yes. Postage is still postage until, of course, the rates go up at some point, but that's not for us to say. Now it gets a little bit trickier. This is going to be nice if Sue were here, but this was some of the reformatting here because over the last several years, it's been a little bit skewed in terms of, I was only half kidding,
I'm sorry.
where the accounts are such that things are not charged purely to, like to telephone. What is telephone? Okay, we don't have a telephone system. We don't run through our office. So if you look at telephone and other purchase services, those have been combined, and paperwork that I don't think I have, Sue. You tried to give it to me and I wouldn't take it. So if you look at postage, the telephone and other purchase services, okay? The amount that was budgeted last year, as you see here, is 67.
3,720.
No, that was 2018.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
2019,
Yeah, I know,
19,
I know.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
67.
6720.
And the other purchase services was, I'm sorry, FY19, it was zero,
Zero.
okay? But if you look at the 2018 for the telephone, the 6,700, again, there was no telephone account in 2018. If you look at these combined, that's the 11,720.
Is the,
And the 34,000 was essentially end-of-year transfers back, so that's not a pure number at the end of it. That wasn't a budgeted number. That was the result of end-of-year transfers that really didn't have another home except the selectmen's
other purchase
expenses.
services budget?
So that's why we've just combined telephone into other purchase services, because it's just to be splitting up, vouchers, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So effectively, that's the same amount that we've been having between two line items into one.
Why do we have a line item for telephone budget appropriation if there is not a telephone budget?
It's in his contract to get a reimbursement, a small reimbursement for it, but at the same time, he's also getting a reimbursement
Yeah.
for his car, and one was getting paid out of here, and one was getting paid, well, they should have been paid as two separate line items,
Okay.
but they were paying them out of
Right.
one anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so splitting vouchers for $60 a month was a lot more work than it was worth. So now it's all in the purchase of services line item.
And you said
So
other
we'll not see a
purchase,
telephone budget appropriation anymore? in the-
Correct.
No,
Okay. We'll only see other purchase services
that's
budget?
correct. That's correct, yes. I'm sorry, Matt, what was that?
other purchase services, you said last year FY19 was paid out of where?
Yeah, this is
Telephone
blank.
budget appropriation.
Yeah, it was,
It was zero budgeted, but it was paid for out of there. And then it was budgeted in telephone, but wasn't paid for out of there.
now
So,
keep in mind, these are sub-line items, so when you talk about something being paid of another account, it's the bottom line expenses that it all accrues to. So if you're running a little low in one particular sub-line item, but
So I think my question is, last year between the two, the budgeted amount was 6,700, and this year it's 11,700.
actually, see, I know what you're saying, that was a Madam Town Accountant?
so I was looking at 18, just to be even more difficult. I was looking at actuals for 18, because we haven't gone through 19.
Compared to 18, because it went from
Yeah, don't get you-
38,000
Right.
down to 11.
So, but that 38, that
Last year.
34.5, there was 67.20 in there, and other purchased, and in telephone in 18, there was 3720, and we almost hit those two numbers. So I'm basing this based on what we spent 2 years ago, or a year ago, because we don't have fully what we spent to date for this year.
And it would obviously be nice if we could have replaced this format one for one, but once again, our financial management system that we've paid a whole lot of money for doesn't always want to cooperate in a timely manner.
There's not a way to like just change the,
That's,
title? for
So-
it?
yeah, well, these are pre, these, you know, the UMIS, these are the accounts that are broken down by the state accounting. So realistically, there'll be zeros in the future on some of these,
Okay.
unless Sue figures out otherwise. So, so once again, it's essentially the same, just reformatted into two different line items. Office supplies have not changed. And the so-called travel budget, and hasn't changed, dues and fees.
Travel budget says went
I'm
up.
sorry, that's another reformatting.
The
Okay.
travel
Okay, 'cause,
budget
yeah.
go
It went
up or
way up.
down
Well,
to
it's
zero.
eight-
Looks like
from
it got
18 to
zero.
Looks like
19,
it
it
got
went from
zero.
Yeah,
65
and then
to
on here,
6,000.
it's saying it's going to 7
Was that part of?
on this one.
Yeah, those are being combined.
Yeah, so
that-
travel and dues and fees are gonna be
Right.
combined.
Travel doesn't exist anymore, but dues and fees. So what you see here for travel and dues and fees combined, that's gonna be all wrapped into dues and fees.
Dues and fees on the next
Yes,
page.
right. Right, so there'll be no more travel, but there'll be dues and fees, because it's not like we're doing mileage reimbursement. Most of that is the same thing. It's more of, professional development, conference-related. So it's not, it just doesn't fit anymore in, a travel budget. So the 7 from last year, in the 15, those are combined both, into the dues and fees. So, see, the total expenses, significantly.
Where's the 5 you're coming up with?
I'm sorry.
You said 7 and 5 to make the 12.
Um,
It's actually
It's actually 6.
6 and 12.
Yeah.
To make 22.
Excuse me?
Next
The next
page.
page.
6 and 12?
Yeah,
maybe
it's
22?
6 and
And
12, but then
12.
it
Yeah.
increased to 22 for
But
this.
what was originally requested for the travel, I believe, was 7.
Yeah, and then.
Requested for travel
and
was
dues
7
fees was
and 15
And
for
15.
dues
Right,
and fees.
right.
So
You didn't add-
that's what makes the 22.
So it's actually 22. So dues and fees went
Last
up then,
year
and
was-
travel went up?
Last year was 18.5.
Dues and fees usually go up every year.
Yeah, this is,
Membership fees, and we have
And
a.
then the
cer-
travel budget went, even though we're not using, went up?
it's already.
We're
it's
using
actually-
it, but again, it's the way that they were paying, like, some of the travel was getting paid out of travel, and some was getting paid out of dues and fees, and so just instead of separating, just put it all in one
Yeah.
line item.
And that's a line item we've historically run a little low in. I think this is one you may have noticed, it kind of end-of-year transfers. This was kind of something we really haven't funded all that accurately for a number of years. So if you get out total expense, you can see 2019 to the FY '20, most of that obviously is the $25,000 in landfill monitoring. Yeah, sorry for the confusion, but it was just, again, I don't know, how much do we pay for this system, so?
62?
I'm really confused.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved in the 62 and whether or not it's working out for us, but, okay.
Can somebody
Yeah, sure,
explain that to me?
sure.
Sorry, I just
Yeah.
don't. So the travel budget,
Wanted 7,000.
Yeah, that was the original,
So it's 7.
yeah.
And
for
then
2019, the
So if you look-
the allocated 7,000.
So if you
No.
look
No.
at
Six.
the
the
original document, the
6,000, but now they
requested,
want 7,000.
travel was requesting an increase from 6 to 7.
So
Okay.
that's- And then they're
And-
combining it with,
Dues and fees was requesting an increase from 12.5 to 15.
Correct, yes,
The 22.
that's right.
So the 15 and the 7 is what make up the 22.
And
Combining, so go to
the next page, the 22 over here.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's what that combines those two together. Because it looks like that's allocated, but they asked for an increase up for the 22.
So this.
They asked for 15 this year, so it's up by
Up from
16.
the, okay,
Yes.
all right,
Sure,
now I'm,
yeah. If you understand it, you're one step ahead of me, you know. The totals of the, yeah, it's the reformatting of it, which makes it a little bit
okay.
confusing.
Yeah,
this
no,
year.
that makes sense to
Yeah.
me now, I just.
Right, so, as you can see, again, the totals on the expenses are, they're up a little bit, but overall, it being reformatted. The major issue clearly is the inclusion of the $25,000 for landfill monitoring. And in the totals, that's pretty much, that's one of the larger issues too. And when you go back to the reduction in salaries, again, hopefully in years to come, we'll be able to move that, save a little bit more there too, so. Okay, I don't.
Next.
Yeah.
Or are there more
Nope.
questions first? Okay, next.
Next would be, I don't know, Finance Committee's
Legal
budget.
retainer budget?
Yeah.
Town
Yes,
council?
yeah, we're leaving that, we're not, $100,000 in this current fiscal year, we're proposing to keep it as it is. Through January, we're at about $65,000.
That we've spent,
14.
I'm sorry?
that we've spent.
Correct, yes, and obviously that, some of that's within our control, some of it's
Right.
out of our control. I think, yeah, all right, so I know it's gone up, we've had to go up a little bit, I think it was 70,000 a few years ago, and then and then moved it up, and now, because we were always seeking end-of-year transfers for. Okay, I'm looking for the account number for town.
Town office building,
1950,
I'm sorry, what is it?
1920?
1920,
Okay.
yes.
Oh,
Thank you, Deb.
thank you.
Is the town office building salary the custodian?
That is the custodian, yes.
Split with the library?
That is correct, that is correct. You have a very good memory, Mr. Chairman, so,
We're increasing that significantly?
well, some of,
Library paying less?
a little bit, yes, because the gentleman who is doing this, gave him a little bit of a pay raise, and library hasn't caught up yet, so eventually it'll be half and half. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we're bearing a little bit more of it at the moment, and requiring a little bit more too from that. So that's, yeah. I mean, this is something, down the road, not specifically the day-to-day maintenance, but, our facilities, our maintenance person, he can't be doing, he can only do so much in terms of, maintaining, the cleanliness of hallways and, vacuuming the entire building. I mean, there aren't a lot of hours for him to do that. At some point, we're gonna have to figure out how to deal with that more effectively from, the larger, vacuuming and, and emptying waste baskets and cleaning up. That's one thing, but again, some of the larger issues, like, the rugs and the walls. I mean, it's 20-something-year-old building is starting to look like it. So going down
Other
the,
towns do.
it varies. I mean, for instance, we used to have a
Company.
company, and it seemed like a lot of money for doing the same thing.
Mhm.
Then our maintenance custodian, he's extraordinarily dedicated, as you may know, some of you who know Mr. Graham. So you do get a lot of bang for the buck. It's
Yeah.
just one of those investments eventually we're gonna have to look at. I know, we're starting to get some prices on some painting. We're hoping this year to get some pricing on replacing the rugs in this building. I mean, the duct tape on the seams is, it's not exactly,
Not the look we're going for.
no, I would say not.
Aesthetic choice.
Because people say, well, this is an old building. Well, 20-year-old municipal building is new, so we need to do a little investment. I'm getting off track a little bit, but I just want to kind of put it out there that this is basically just, bare bones janitorial work. Okay, the electricity budget. This, as you may already have heard, this is rolling in all the municipal buildings into one electricity budget. Once again, I don't know to what extent there may be a better way to format this, but in terms of accounting for all the buildings, dealing with a vendor and breaking out all the accounts, everybody pay them separately. That's a little bit difficult in light of our net metering agreement, where it's better to have just a school pays their electricity and the town pays our own
That was
electricity.
going to be my first question,
Yeah.
is the school included?
That is, no, they're not. They
I
get it.
assumed that it was not.
No, exactly, yeah.
I know we talked about this with several of the departments as they came in, how their electricity line was zeroed out and it was being
Right,
put
right.
into this one
And,
line.
The reason the school's not is because it's easier for them to do their end-of-the-year school report if they have their actuals.
So you guys didn't just leave the lights on all the
no, actually,
Run the AC.
we actually leave the
just
heat
like-
on all the time.
Yeah,
so-
then the heat, yeah.
Which is, like a few.
I've heard some complaints about the heat in the building.
Yeah, from you, I think. From you, so, yeah.
Perhaps from others as well.
Mhm.
But,
Well, we'll discuss it in the next
question-
item if you'd like.
Question on this is,
Fuel oil?
do we, no, on electricity?
No,
Is-
there was.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Combining them all into one, are we seeing any savings through doing this, or is it merely
Merely an
accounting?
ease in paying.
Yeah, yes, at the moment. Okay, fuel oil, which really, it's really not oil, it's gas.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, exactly. Why does it say fuel oil? Is that one of the
It's
humus?
just a general humus thing. Well, if I change that, then all the other ones that say fuel oil
We'll say gas.
will say gas. So yours,
No, this is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts here, this isn't us, just so you're aware, okay. Building repairs.
Is there not just a fuel line?
Would make
That
sense.
would cover both of
One,
them.
one would think.
Right, but
One
then
would
that might
think.
end up including vehicle.
Yeah. Building repair, maintenance, again, this is just your
The
normal,
painting.
yeah, normal ongoing,
That is the maintenance of it, or that is like we pay for companies to come in here and do that stuff?
this is basically for the expenses of running the building. Occasionally there, I also believe this is a lot of this is maintenance contracts, elevator
I'm-
maintenance.
yeah.
Yes, it's all the, various maintenance contracts that, and I think you probably wrote this down for me, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. Services contracts and as well as general repairs. So that's the 27.7.
That's this time to show.
And the rent and lease of the copiers, that's just, again, 2 copiers, 2 floors, ongoing expense. Custodial supplies pretty much speaks for itself.
Do you think we'll be at a point soon that we could do away with that, or is that just gonna be something that, it's not that much money, it's only $6,000, but is that something that that you guys see that might be sort of done away with
I'm sorry?
the copier?
Like buying them.
Yeah, like just because I know somebody was saying we're updating the records where things are gonna go electronic and stuff.
Scanner,
or-
yeah, that's scanner, yeah.
Yeah.
The scanning project downstairs, right.
Yeah, this is just for
Yeah.
copiers for the
Yeah.
offices and their lease agreements.
Yeah,
Right.
So we keep them on lease because they get old and
yeah.
Yeah.
they bring them
They're
back in
used,
with a
they're-
new.
Yeah,
I
they,
think Greg's question is,
we
when's the
need
town office going paperless?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't
So-
I
Sorry, I should have said it
no,
better.
I think that's right after we cap the landfill.
All right.
Well, you know, it wouldn't be so bad if we didn't have to produce public records either.
Right.
If, you know, when all is said and done,
Public records could
We-
all be digital.
right, right,
But we are nowhere near that point,
no.
despite many advancements.
Yes, yes. So, and town reports, you know, we've got the same, same request as this past year. We had thought about this year whether or not we could actually cut down the number of reports, the books we get, but, you know, town clerk thinks we should still, what do you got, 200?
We get 200.
200 every year, and then,
We used to get a lot more.
yeah.
We did. We cut
Yeah.
that down.
Yeah,
a
we
while
were
ago.
thinking about reducing it, but we only have 25 left.
Yeah, we
so-
thought we had a lot more, but
I was gonna say, are they just available in the
clerk's office.
clerk's office
Yes,
and people
and we've got some
request them?
available in our selectman's office too. if People,
Call them the nosy book.
right. Sooner or later, we'll have this online, so people can get onto our website. That's something.
The annual town report. I'm
Yeah.
looking for the FY13 one right there, and it's not there, because that's the one
I
that has
see.
the landfill information on it.
Oh, okay. We can just ask Sean, we don't need that, so, yeah. So again, that might be something down the road too. So that's,
North River,
if they're a collaborative, that's, you know, same
slight,
thing, assessment.
slight increase.
Yeah.
What specifically is
Oh,
that?
that is the,
We're not as familiar.
basically, it's tuition for people that they go to this particular educational institution.
Who are the people?
It's like odd.
Yeah, we don't.
Can I correct you?
Yeah, that's not right.
That's not right, but.
Wouldn't they be through the school?
I've got the-
So North River Collaborative does our reimbursements for any Medicare things that go through the school. So if the
Okay.
kids need anything
I'm
that are
sorry.
health services related, and they reimburse us, we get a reimbursement for it.
More things should be health services related, but they
okay.
are not.
Correct.
You've crystallized my thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. You laughing at me? No. All right, my bad, I'm sorry. The other budget that is of interest here would be our municipal liability insurance, and let's see what page that is on. What account number would that be?
9160 or 9170? 9450.
I was hoping you might tell me a page, Deb, just for a moment.
At the end, all the way at the end.
Yeah, okay,
The second to last page.
beautiful.
The only
Okay.
thing after it is grant.
This one, this one.
Gotcha, okay. Getting there. Hold on.
There you go.
Okay. Now, just so you know, we don't have final pricing yet on our insurance policies, but this includes our workers' comp, our property insurance, general liability, there's public officials liability, there's police and fire accident, which not part of workers' compensation, for those of you who wouldn't know about that at this time. So what we have in here too is we don't know exactly what our insurance coverage requirements are going to be for the golf course. Now, again, those will be offset eventually. So that's a big unknown just now. So it's, yes, it's a little higher, but you know, there's also going to be liquor liability with the golf course. So right now, it's a little inflated, but again, some of these are going to be offset. Like I said, we don't have our final pricing yet. So again, we're hoping that there's some that it's a little heavy. We'll have a better idea in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, I mean, once again, it's called liability insurance, but it's big nut. And this is everybody: town hall, school department, every department. You know, you can see historically it's been reasonably flat. I mean, again, we expect that it's going to be reasonably flat too. We have had a couple workers' comp situations, and you know how that can inflate.
Inflates, I was just gonna ask, like,
But
how,
hopefully it won't be all that much at this stage, so, because we have another one falling off. No pun intended about that. So that's where we stand for now. Yes?
Mr. Tyler.
Just seems, I keep getting demoted now.
Sorry, Dr. Tyler.
It keeps, 17.
Dr. CEO Tyler.
That's a huge, I get the notion of, it's the hitherto unknown,
Yeah.
with regards to anticipated liability costs, but a global of 17.7% increase year over year draws into question is the largest driver, because your mod and your A up for your workers' comp is more or less stable.
Mhm.
If you look year over year, thank you, the workers' comp rate of insurance bureau,
No, I
look
didn't.
at that. The biggest challenge is just gonna come down to is how much swag do you feel is in that, right? Now, I just took, maybe my numbers are wrong, but I looked at the 850, 843, and I just divided it by the FY 19 allocation of 725. Got it.
No, I mean, we can,
I understand fully.
yeah, you see, I don't know,
I know
just
the
a
liability
quick,
insurance
the
is
quick
gonna be
math there,
difficult.
down the bottom, just so,
Which math am I doing here?
no, I scribbled it at the bottom there. I scribbled it.
It's
at the
like chicken
bottom.
scratch, I say it, it's there. It's the, if you look at the alphanumerics, when you add together, you know, A plus B equals C.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, I know, yeah,
So I understand.
yeah, I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
might be able to understand that, so.
Yeah, I was,
So again, with the golf course,
I was giving you swag, so
Yeah.
my swag might be, a little-
No.
the division might not be.
no. I think historically, I think I've been more out front on that, so people understood
Yeah,
some of that
makes a lot of
math,
sense.
so.
I said 17.7%,
Yeah.
we came up with a different number, that's
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
We're on the same page.
So again, hopefully it'll be, won't be that much different from the last 2 fiscal years, even though there's a little bit of movement in workers' comp, but, you know, there's, again, some reserve for the unknown right now with regard to the golf course, so.
Other questions?
This is when I hesitate to open my mouth, but as I mentioned, you know, general liability is, you know, speaks for itself, but under Mass General laws, we are also required to carry other types of insurances, and I mentioned before, like public officials liability, that's not necessarily general liability, but that kicks in, should, for the sake of argument, that the finance committee gets sued, okay, that your public officials, so there's a liability that covers that, the general policy umbrella covers beyond that. You know, and our police and fire accident policies, as I said, they're completely outside workers' comp. So they tend to be expensive, but police and firefighters are not covered by the workers' compensation law. So there's separate policies too.
Questions, comments? Anything else?
The only thing I would say is, we have just a quick budget scenario, which I don't want to go over tonight, but maybe, I don't know, the meeting next week.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
we just pass out quick paperwork, and next week, if you'd like to schedule in, we can do more of a discussion presentation if you'd like.
Next week, our plan for everyone to know is we will be meeting with the South Shore Votech, but we were also planning for that meeting to go over the latest with the budget and to start going over
Articles.
the warrant, articles in the warrant. So,
Bring this next week?
No, well, we'll have more next week, another, you know,
Good.
more detail, but this is a budget balance scenario, which includes,
Extras.
you know, basically a 3.5% general increase. It meets the needs of the school department. It includes one position into our public works department and an equal amount into the expense budget. effectively to reserve funding if we need it. We haven't figured out yet whether or not we need additional funding in terms of manpower or in terms of contracted services. We do have some estimates on the school currently, which, John and the school, Jason Lynn, looking over, trying to get a sense of, okay, maybe it's a matter of using a menu option and say, these services will be of more help than, we don't need general mowing, but we need, the care and maintenance of the islands, so many times a year. So, that was that's, as you know, that's the town's staffing challenge right now. That's a little bit different. We're pretty much staffed up reasonably well with our public safety departments over the last several years. So it's nice when your staffing priorities have got to the point where this is what we're talking about.
So we're adding a full-time DPW.
We're adding a full-time in the Park and Rec division, I think, technically.
Yeah, it's in the
But
Park
it's
and Rec.
effectively the,
I'm
within-
just curious,
yeah.
with like some of the things like the islands, is that something we can?
Barbara, I can't hear you.
I'm just curious, something like the islands, is that something that people can adopt
Adopt
the
an island, yeah.
islands along in there to cut down on some of what is required, and put their
Oh, yeah, Braintree has it,
sign
because I
for
see the
their.
signs.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it around other areas around town.
Sure.
Is that something we could do in the school area?
I'm not saying we can't. It might be something I'll discuss with the school administration.
Just to
Sure.
alleviate a little bit even
Yeah.
of the amount of space that needs to be tended to.
I'm all for it. If some of it may take a little more skill work, again, it's beyond my knowledge
Yeah, well, I
base.
don't know, that's why,
Yeah, right,
maybe.
but
I think Rick's gonna do
Certainly.
most of it.
Yeah, I think
Certainly
so, yeah.
something
Well,
to explore.
Well, I'm pretty much cleaning the building now, so.
Now, does this
Right.
include?
Sue
Duct-
painted her own
duct
office
taping.
last week, okay? I mean,
This
this is what we're
So
doing.
this includes
It's a
like
beautiful model.
the school got the school adjustment counselor.
I'm sorry.
So this budget, there is school adjustment counselors in it?
It's what
What the
Whatever they,
school requested.
what they
Yeah.
wanted, so
Right.
they get the girls'
Right, I
track
mean,
coach that they had
right,
asked for.
sure. There's not everything in there, in their level
Right,
1,
but
2
those
budgets.
things that they want, the things we went over last week. And then is the librarian's salary being increased? That's
Yes.
what she had wanted.
Yes,
Okay.
that is part of that, yes. So again, it's a reasonably good budget. Some of the things that came into play to help us, as you know, South Shore VOTEC, and they'll be in next week, that accrued to our favor, big time. Chapter 70, we were fortunate that the investment we made last year has come back, as we had crossed our fingers a bit. Some of the problems, as you probably know, is the ambulance, the inability for that to fund itself. So one of the articles you've probably seen will be to eliminate the enterprise fund. But again, next week, we can go over article by article as well as the capital, if you'd like.
So one more quick question. So those are all the things we can do. What are the things we can't do with this budget?
So the two other requested DPW positions.
Yes, and again, one of them is technically in the form of expenses at the moment. We're actually, there was some, fairly minimal, like, pay increases requested, throughout the town, but it's, people knew coming in that this is, the requests must be minimal. So,
Reasonable.
yeah, so it's not like we have a department that asks for, 4 people. So it was intended to be modest, that were the instructions, so we don't have, a lot of what people might say they would have liked, you never saw. It was just unreasonable, simple as that. One of the, as you probably know, over the last several years, we've been trying to get, particularly the COA director's salary up, so those are things that jump every year a little bit more out of the ordinary, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
How
And
are
there's-
we at with that, with the COA salary?
This would be the third year of increase of about $7,000 a year over the last 3 years. I mean, it was abysmal what
Yeah.
Suzanne
What was
making.
the intended length of years to?
Well, it was to be
This is over.
3 years.
Okay.
However, we are in the early stages of project where we'll be conducting a wage and classification plan, and that will obviously give us a better idea of what is what the correct funding
Where
should
we've-
be for that.
Where we've gotten
Right.
to.
But I would, I'm going to
Where it stands.
venture to guess that even after this coming fiscal year, that position's still gonna need some work. What she was willing to do for so little is just admirable. It really, really is, you know. She wasn't even the one clamoring for more money. It was us knowing we need to get her more money, so, you know, God bless her. She'll do anything for those seniors.
Dr. CEO Tyler.
With regards to debt service on the budget, for one, thank you for answering those questions as it relates to, I don't know how you characterize the budget, but it's beyond the service, right? There's some service enhancements that are going in. My question is specific to the retirement of debt. One is just for a point of clarification for my IUIs. I don't have a page number, I think that's the third page in.
Oh, library.
Specifically,
Next year.
it's admirable to obviously accelerate the
21.
pay down of short-term borrowing. I think that's great. We're paying $300,000 thereabouts more to do that. The question that I have is, again, this is just my own personal ignorance, that's principal and any accrued interest, is that right? That pay down of debt? And then the next question that kind of follows suit is the next line that's listed as long-term debt / interest. Is that your P&I payment, or is that just exclusively debt service?
Here on your headsets.
I do it all the time.
Where are you, Sean?
Sure, I'm under, it starts with
Yeah,
retirement of debt.
Page
You're in
that
the new handout.
starts,
I'm in your new
Okay,
handout.
okay, that's.
Total
Okay.
culture.
Okay.
it starts Board of Health salary.
I got it.
Understood.
I got it.
Okay, fair enough, okay.
And
So we're just talking about long-term and short-term debt?
So specifically, the headers read retirement of debt.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious for the 3.179 million, since we've increased that, by 10%, which means we plan to either accelerate the repayment or something's coming due that we knew was coming due. That's great. That's a principal and interest line, is that correct?
That
That's
would
fair
be
to
the
say?
school that is bonded now, that is
Okay.
is going to be,
So all that short-term.
From a
loans,
short-term
whatever,
correct,
got
it's
it.
going to
Perfect.
long-term.
No, that's great. So the next one is more for my naivete. The header reads long-term debt / interest. So
It's
is
the
that-
interest for the long-term debt, not the short-term.
But that's exclusively debt service. There's no principal payments in there.
Correct.
Damn.
A lot of interest.
Thank you. That was
No, I-
it. Thank you.
Once I figured out what paperwork you were working off, but, it's helpful, so.
I figured it was prima facie.
Yeah.
We're giving you a handout of a piece. so. But anyway, thank you.
So next week, we'll be prepared to talk about the warrant articles. Again, but we'll do a more comprehensive job of explaining the budget, both in terms of a memo and any questions people want to raise. Anything else we talked about specifically for next week? I think, that, that you expect from us?
I don't think so. I think it's the articles, general budget discussion of where we're at.
Okay.
South Shore Vote
No, town meeting's on May 20th,
May
Correct.
20th.
so we have
Yes.
to be done by May 10th.
We have to be published by May 10th.
Yes.
Recommendation, so we need to be
So by
done
May
by the
9th.
9th.
Yeah,
So,
midnight.
So
which
will you be looking for
believe
funding
our-
sources for your articles, or just discussing your articles?
Well, we have
next-
proposed,
We do,
funding
but-
sources.
Do I bring that with me?
Yes, I think we bring
I think that would be
everything next
that would
week.
be good.
A whole plan.
We're aiming for our final votes on May 8th. So,
I'll say we hope next week you'll feel like you're pretty close. Pretty close.
any last questions or comments before we move to liaison reports?
I'm sorry. Whose pencil did I?
That was
steal?
mine.
Take that as a no. Any liaison reports? I'll take that as a no. We have no correspondence this week. One of the benefits of meeting every week. We don't always have mail to give them. Reviewing minutes, we do have minutes to review. We have the minutes from our April 3rd meeting that were very detailed and well prepared. Any comments or motions for the minutes of April 3rd?
Motion to approve?
Second.
So motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? The ayes have it. Next meeting, as previously discussed, is next Wednesday, the 17th. We already went over what we'll be talking about, so unless there are any other points of discussion, I would accept any motions.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning? Those opposed? Abstaining? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.